I finished this cactus painting and I couldn't wait to pop it in a frame. But as soon as I removed the tape, I realized my painting was buckled, warped, cockled, whatever you want to call it. It's the biggest nuisance in watercolor. I've already attempted to flatten the painting. I tried ironing it. I also tried pressing it under heavy books for days on end. It still doesn't lay flat. Compare that to another piece I painted recently on stretched paper. It's so much flatter, and I didn't have to do anything to flatten the finished painting. With this cactus painting, I'll have to keep trying to get it flat. There's not much I can do now. But it is easy to prevent this in the future if I stretch my paper before painting. Now, stick with me, stretching watercolor paper is not just for professionals. It sounds intimidating, but it's easier than you think. If you do this, your paper will stay flat while you paint and forever afterward. Come to my kitchen with me and I'll show you the simple way I stretch watercolor paper. It takes less than 10 minutes and you'll thank yourself later when your finished painting stays flat. You'll need 100% cotton watercolor paper that is slightly larger than you want your finished painting. I allow for a 1/4-inch border on all sides. You need gator board. It looks like thick foam core, but the core of gator board is water resistant, so it won't buckle or warp when it gets wet. It's also easy to staple into. You need a stapler that can open fully or a staple gun, and staples, of course. Make sure your stapler is fully loaded with staples before you start. I get away with a smaller border because I rely on staples only to stretch my paper. I work mostly on sizes 12 by 16 inch and smaller. You also need a clean place to soak your paper. I use a shallow storage bin that I only use for soaking watercolor paper. It needs to be large enough to fit your paper. This bin is a little larger than I need, but I like that it fits over my sink, which makes it easy to fill with water. You only need 1 to 2 inches of cold water in the bottom of the bin. Submerge your watercolor paper and let it soak. I soak my Arches 140-pound cold press watercolor paper for 5 minutes. The type of paper and sizing will affect how long you need to soak it. You'll know when it's ready when you can fold the paper over on itself and it doesn't flop back. When it stays folded over, it's ready. Don't soak your paper too long or you risk washing the sizing out of the paper. When the timer goes off, you need to be ready with your gator board and loaded stapler. Lift the paper out of the water and let the excess water drip off for a moment. Then position the paper over your gator board. Once you lay it down, it isn't easy to reposition, so hold it above the board in a U shape and get it centered where you want. Touch down the middle and then let the sides lay flat. You don't actually stretch or pull the paper. The paper will stretch itself. You just need to staple it in place while it's wet. I like to add a staple in the center of each side about 1/8 of an inch in from the paper edge. Then I staple all around the paper. My staples are less than 2 inches apart and I make sure there is a staple in every corner. As the paper dries, it stretches itself. The fibers in the paper expanded when they were in the water. Now they will contract as they dry, but the staples will keep the paper from shrinking, thereby stretching the paper fibers. Let the paper dry overnight, ideally for 24 hours. This process takes less than 10 minutes to do, but you need to do it 24 hours in advance of when you want to paint. That was the biggest thing that kept me from stretching my watercolor paper. But if you have multiple pieces of gator board, you can stretch several papers at a time and always have one ready to go. Then you can tape a border over the staples if you want before painting. You can paint on stretched paper and it shouldn't buckle. When you just tape paper down to a board, it will buckle when you paint on it, but when it dries, it goes back flat. However, as soon as you remove the tape, the paper will warp or buckle again. When you stretch your watercolor paper like I just showed you, it will stay flat while you're painting. You may notice very slight buckling with really heavy washes, but it will stay quite flat and dry perfectly flat. But the big difference is when you take off the tape and remove the staples from stretched paper, it stays flat forever. It's ready to frame, scan, or sell immediately. That's the pro secret even beginners can use. Just look at the difference. Now that you know the secret for ready-to-frame paintings as soon as the paint is dry, check out this amazing hack for framing your watercolor art.